Welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation, the podcast. This, of course, is the show that talks about all things innovation in the fast casual sector. And really, when we break down the fast casual sector, we look at a variety of categories. And one that is really breaking the mold now is fusion. I'm your host, Paul Barron, and I'll be kind of walking you through this. And today I've got with me the founder of Seoul Taco, David Choi. Nice to have you on the show.
Hey, Paul, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. So, David, we get a chance to really kind of drill down into these really kind of these unknown brands like Seoul Taco, which is now becoming a well-known brand. And as we watch them, we look at everything from sentiment scores. It was really what kind of drew you guys to the top of the heap and why we wanted to get you on the show. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk to you a little bit about your background, how you started Seoul Taco, and kind of what was the mission behind it.
Yeah, so when I first started Seoul Taco, it was just really it was just cooking Korean food and just at like random barbecues for friends and family and stuff like that. I've always, ever since I was 15 years old, I've worked at kitchens or delivering food, or I was always in the space, not necessarily fine dining, whether it was a buddy's Chinese restaurant that needed help. Just knowing anyone in the restaurant industry, help's always wanted at all times. So you could put the help wanted sign on your window, and that could stay up like a Christmas tree for some families. So and then I just always worked at different restaurants, things like that, delis, pizza places. But yeah, I was just always interested, and always had a curiosity why Korean food was never in these spaces. And, just with the other, even different Asian cuisine was, in part of that mix. You see sushi even at gas stations and things like that. I was just knew that Korean food was so flavorful. And, even my American friends or folks that weren't Korean, they would come and try Korean food and they would absolutely love it. So I've seen that even at a young age, that the folks just love the flavors. And then more than anything, it's just trying to build something that's trying to build something where folks aren't familiar with it. So I knew that folks weren't familiar with Korean cuisine, and then folks are absolutely familiar with Mexican cuisine, whether it's Tex-Mex or authentic Mexican, But yeah, and I just knew that there was a space for that. But and at that time, I really attributed it to Roy Choi. He started the Gogi food truck, and he started that huge food truck boom. And more than anything, I checked it out, and I wasn't even planning on starting anything really, but it was like, I think it was at a Super Bowl party like 10, 11 years ago, and I was just like, I'm gonna just make these Korean tacos for everyone, and it was just the absolute hit. And I was just like, man, St. Louis and Midwest sort of needs food trucks as well. So I sort of looked into that, and and then just talking to local government officials and stuff, they just didn't know what to do with food trucks either. So it ended up landing in St. Louis, which is my hometown, and that's sort of the story of that. And then from there, now we have 7 brick-and-mortar stores within St. Louis and Chicago. And the food truck still operates right now, but that's just sort of a quick rundown of how that got
very cool
about. So
So I love the cooking aspect of, because we do see some CEOs that kind of come up from either a chef position or a line cook or somewhere where they fell in love with a particular cuisine. Obviously with Korean, Mexican, an interesting approach. Was it, so you went the food truck route, but did you ever think, hey, maybe I should make this a casual dining concept as opposed to a fast casual concept?
Yeah, so really how that came about was just out of sheer need. And we sort of outgrew our space on the food truck. And we needed our own space. And the city here, in most cities with food trucks, they require commissaries. So So like we were running
So that
out of
was kind of the
space. We
first
needed a
step.
place to
Yeah.
prep. In all honesty, when I first started, it was just whatever it took. Like I was prepping in my parents' kitchen, making dumplings
Yeah.
in my parents' kitchen, and
Love
parking
that.
the truck in their driveway. The neighbors weren't too happy, but yeah, just having like adding like 3-4 refrigerators like in the garage, and soon kick my dad's car out the garage. And I was just like, all right,
Wow.
this yeah,
Truly a garage startup. I love that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
So we're just like, all right, we need a different place to prep and do things. So, and just knowing it wasn't feasible, just like trying to be in someone else's restaurant, just because every restaurant I know, just there's always a lack of space, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then just trying to time that, it was just too hard logistically to do that. But yeah, so we ended up finding this small storefront, which is right next to Washington University here in St. Louis, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, so we found that, and it's in a neighborhood called the Del Mar Loop, which is one of the few like real pedestrian friendly spots in St. Louis too. So I was like,
Okay.
why not just open up to the public, even though the
Yeah.
space was small. It was good enough for a commissary, but for us, I was just like, why not just sell to the public?
Yeah.
We have a great spot to do that. So
So
that's
out of necessity, you went with a counter service? Was
yeah,
that kind of the role?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right.
uh,
Well, cool.
yeah, just starting your own business and whatnot as from there. I feel like you wear all the hats. I feel like I'm a licensed electrician, carpenter, and all that as
Hey man,
well.
you gotta learn all traits in the
Yeah,
food service
exactly.
business. You're learning in the true origin of the word, because every I talk to a lot of CEOs now leading billion-dollar brands that say they started in the business as dishwashers. So yeah, it does happen where people really kind of, and plus if you fall in love with it, that's usually the biggest thing. What was the first kind of the first indicator for you to say, hey, we've got something here, let's try to go to 2 units? Did you open the second one in St. Louis, or was it in Chicago?
Yeah. So when our quote unquote commissary place was about 700, 800 square feet. So
Uh-huh.
like we quickly outgrew that within a year. Uh, we moved into a five, little under 5,000 square feet. So we
Cool.
over
Okay.
quadrupled our capacity, and then uh, from there, um, we had an opportunity in Columbia, Missouri, to another college town, which we
Yeah.
thought made sense at the time, just because we're butted next to a college campus in St. Louis. So,
Mm,
and
okay.
then I also have family that lived in Columbia, Missouri still. So very familiar with the area, and it's a great town as well. So uh, people are fantastic. I knew that they'd be open to trying new things down there as well. So yeah, that's where we immediately after the food truck incepted in 2001, we opened in those 2 brick and mortars within the next 2-3 years. So.
Wow. Okay, great. So let's talk about the category segment. So in fast casual, there's half a dozen really power segments, whether it's bakery, cafe, fresh mix, Asian, the healthy category. Fusion is really kind of a new sector within fast casual that is starting to develop. There's a handful of brands that are starting to do similar operations, obviously with Korean, Mexican. Your love for the food, but I mean, that was obviously the consumers were saying, yeah, we love it. And you are in the Midwest, so it seems like it's working in places where you may not necessarily think it would. What was the overall perception of your consumers once you got a brand on you, under your wing? Because sometimes that's one of those cuisines that you might go in once a month for, maybe once every 3 months. How was it for you to, hey, we need to build this into a kind of a frequency scenario here with our customers?
I think that sort of just happened a little more organically than we sort of thought. I was never, um, yeah, like when I first started Soul Taco, one, I wanted to make it affordable. Uh,
Right.
and I mean, when we started, we were selling $2 tacos. Obviously, with the change of food costs and things like that, we have to bump it up a little bit, but it's still affordable. Like I won't ever like price gouge my customers just because I think one, we sell street food, and that has to reflect the origin of it with the
Right.
prices as well. So
Yeah.
for me, I think that definitely helps the customer frequency. And I started this business at the tail end of the recession, so that
Yeah.
sort of, you could see that folks were sort of trying to go more towards the
Trading
fast casual
down.
space, anyways,
Yeah.
where you get a high quality product at a very affordable price, where you could eat
Right.
it feasibly multiple times a week. And we saw that. We seen folks really come in frequently, and that sort of just gave us the confidence to keep building upon that. So
Yeah.
I don't
Price
think
and value.
and
For
I don't
sure.
think necessarily it was just us trying to do something different. It's just something that was very just something very we were comfortable with and familiar with.
Yeah.
As Korean food is, that's just part of my DNA and part of who I am. And same with just being around just different parts of just, that's the beauty of America. There's so many
Yeah.
different cultures you intersect with, and I think fusion is just, it's bound to happen naturally here in
Sure.
the States, just because you have so many cultures and we share so much cuisine. And
Yeah.
really,
Well, it's showing up. It's showing up
yeah,
in the marketplace for sure.
1000%. Yeah.
What was it? Okay, so how many menu items do you have on a menu there at Soul Taco today?
Yeah, so we have 6 main entrees, and then we have
Okay.
5 or 6 side items that mainly include the staple Mexican entrees, which is tacos, quesadillas, burritos. We also have traditional rice bowl that mimics like a traditional bibimbap, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I just didn't want to make things too complicated, and just and thing about Korean food is just a lot of preparation, a lot of time, and with prepping your ingredients and things like that. So I just wanted to utilize, just like any fast casual does, utilize the ingredients that are already in house. And so we sort of mimicked traditional bibimbap, and it's a rice bowl with a fried egg on top. And
Yep.
we also have nachos, and then I have a loaded sweet potato waffle fry, which is neither Korean or Mexican, but we had people requested fries on the side, and we were just like, all right, well, why don't we just try this out, and then make a loaded waffle fry, since we already sort
Yeah.
of have the nachos. So
Unit economics for you is that obviously you need a certain type of kitchen, certain amount of equipment. In your space now with your new stores, what would be the average footprint for you today? If you were, if you said, hey, we're going to get your most recent real
Right.
estate.
So I've been able to just crunch the numbers and just think realistically. We're not trying to grow just to grow and grow sake, but for me, it's one, we project where we want to be, and just match sort of the rental rates around that area. And I believe for us, the advantage for us is we started as a food truck and did high volume out of a food truck, and are currently doing high volumes out of food truck. So really, we can go anywhere from a food truck to our 4,800 square foot space here that we still currently operate out of. But so really, just if the rental rates make sense, and then we sort of take second generation spots where it's a little more cost effective build out.
Yeah.
For me, I haven't taken outside investment or anything like that. So whatever we make, we put right back into our business. And
That's great. Bootstrapping all the way.
Yeah. So from there, it's not necessarily parameters around what kind of square footage or footprint we need. It's more of it's more of neighborhood has to feel right, and we get a little of that from the data from a lot of the third-party deliveries that have been, a lot of the third-party deliveries that are going out right now, and it's increasing. So we're not going to just be stubborn and say we're not going to take deliveries or anything like that, and really just take advantage of like DoorDash and Uber Eats and things like that.
Right.
Where,
yeah.
But I think 3 years ago we launched a campaign with Uber Eats and DoorDash and things like that, and that was like 15-20% of our sales from there. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty good. And then some of our spaces, it gets up to 35. Within 3 years, it bumped up to 35% of our sales, which
interesting.
I don't think it's going anywhere. And for me to be stubborn and try to not partner with these guys, it would be foolish of me to do so. So,
well, you're an emerging brand, so
yeah.
you're not a household name yet. So it's difficult to, obviously you need, marketing. In a sense, I hear more and more, CEOs and fast casual leaders say that, these kinds of services are really marketing engines more so than anything.
Yep.
So kind of interesting that you guys are getting that much food mix or sales mix from third party.
Yeah. So, and then we just crunch the data from that and see who's ordering from us, and if it makes sense. If it makes sense, then we sort of plan out where, what type of market we need to open our next brick-and-mortar at.
So what would be the smallest store in terms of square footage?
So I have a 1,300 square foot store.
1,300, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
1,400.
So if you can run it in a 1,300 square foot, unit economics are solid at that square footage. Is there any intent to try to really maybe say, hey, let's go after some private equity and really try to grow this brand, or franchise? What are your thoughts there?
As of now, I mean, franchising is probably not something I'm interested in, especially in the near future. I just think if we're healthy enough and we can grow, organically on our own, then I just think you sort of lose some of the, not necessarily control, but it's just out of your hands a little bit. No matter what, no matter what systems you put in place or manuals and things like that you have in place, so some of that stuff, just regardless, it'll get lost in translation. So
for sure. Where do you think the magic number is for you? You're at 7 units now. Mm-hmm. Do you have kind of a number on the wall that you look at every day and say, hey, when we hit that number, then maybe we're ready for taking on some investment?
Yeah, obviously I-10 would be a huge milestone, but feasibly, I think we can, even just in the markets I'm comfortable in St. Louis and Chicago, I think there's enough market out there for us to build up to 20 stores within just these two markets, and really not oversaturate ourselves. But one thing I've always done is I've never overextended, I've never overextended my company where we're not ready internally to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of folks make mistakes. They get big funding and then they try to grow 10 units in one calendar year, where that to me is just, for me, I feel like I'm an expert in my own company. I know the ins and outs of Seoul Taco. And if you give me unlimited funding right now, I'm not building 10 stores in one market in 1 year, and running that where you don't lose out on quality or you don't lose out on customer service. And I think that's sort of what differentiated us from other folks in the past years, is we really take pride in those things. So.
Well, and it's showing, your sentiment was up from 79.8 last year to 86.4. This year, so that's a big jump in the fast casual space. To move 3, 4, 5 points is pretty significant. What would you say is it just customers are starting to really recognize the brand and they're kind of telling their friends about it? What do you feel is kind of the genesis for that?
Well, I think for us, it's really identifying our own focus. And for us, for example, not all the time do you win, but we had a space in Champaign, Illinois, where it's another college town, but it wasn't as year round as our Columbia, Missouri store, where there's folks still coming to the downtown area and things like that. Where in Champaign, for me, it's not a knock on it. It's a great town, and I fell in love with the area. But yeah, I felt the economic hit when it did come summertime break or wintertime break for the students, and I'm paying the same rent as if I would all year round. So really, 4 months out of the year, I didn't have much business. So that's where I decided to. That's where I decided to just focus on St. Louis and Chicago markets and centralize that focus. And I moved all my assets from Champaign and moved it into a year-round suburb, downtown suburb in downtown Naperville, and that's where
kind of came together for you.
Yep, that's how that store came together with that. So.
Yeah. Well, I like that when you do have struggling markets, getting focused in on the markets that are doing really solid. We have seen that with brands, especially in the top 100 of fast casual, where brands have kind of restructured to a little bit. Some people think, oh, that's a bad sign, but in reality, it's a great sign because consumers kind of feel that. They realize the focus, and it shows up usually in customer service, quality of the product, and in stores that might be struggling or you have low off seasons, you don't get that negative or that lull in the consumer sentiment. So kudos to what you're doing. All right. So last question here. Emerging brands in fast casual popping up like crazy. We've counted, right now we're at 850. Our new report comes out in May. We anticipate we'll be over 900 brands this year with fall-offs and new ads. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel like fast casual can continue to expand? Do you think there's room for more concepts like Seoul Taco?
I absolutely think it can definitely expand. I don't know. For me, I don't see it as like oversaturation. I think the more folks are being creative, more folks are being authentic to themselves. So I think that's been a huge part for Seoul Taco. Is we focus on street art, street food, and things like that. We're in our customer experience when they dine in our stores, and a lot of that's just true to my DNA as part of my life. It's like those are things that I love, and I think when you're true to who you are as you're growing, then and you have that authentic feel, folks definitely see that. So I think if you do that in your food, and if you do that in how you sort of build your brand, then you don't have to search for the next trend or whatever it is. It's just part of you, and that's what makes it easier to grow. So
yeah. Well, it's going to be fun to watch you guys, David, for sure. I mean, we've caught brands at their earliest nascent stages. I mean, I go back to when we kind of I won't say discovered Sweet Green, but they were under 10 units the first time we really kind of recognized them. Same thing with Kava. He was at, under 10 units. Now these guys are growing like crazy. Mod Market. So you're in good company, man. So good luck to what you're doing there at Seoul Taco. Sounds like you guys are on to something cool. And next time I'm in Chicago, I'm going to try to track down one of your locations. Are you inside the Loop?
Yes, sir. We're in River North and right downtown in Chicago as well.
Okay.
So far from the Loop.
Great.
So
I'll definitely get one.
Let me know.
Will do. David, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks for stopping in.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate you.
All right. For all of you listening in over on iTunes or Spotify, make sure and give us a rating. We'd love to get the feedback. And if you do have an idea for the show, maybe you have a topic you want us to discover or talk about here on Fast Casual Nation, the podcast, just shoot us an email to producer@foodabletv.com. And of course, you can hit me up over on Twitter @PaulBaron. That's the best place to reach me. If you are a fast casual operator and you are yet undiscovered, this is the show for you. So make sure and shoot us a note. It'll be great to talk to you. Thanks again for stopping in on another episode of Fast Casual Nation.